السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين. So here we are in this, I guess now third week of isolation. It is not easy on us, but I wanted to make a sermon today that is all about being positive, having an optimistic approach on things. So as we make the best out of our isolation and we have these very reasonable concerns about getting the virus and about our loved ones getting the virus, it's still easy to become overcome by negativity. So it's time to look into the prophetic character of at-tafa'ul, the hoping for good things to happen, as we call it in English, optimism. The scholars, they described at-tafa'ul as an open heart and mind that expects for good things to happen, to have good assumptions, to have a good attitude, and to speak good words. So most importantly, it is to react positively to negative realities. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا عدوى ولا طيرة ويعجبني الفأل وأحب الفأل الكلمة الحسنة الكلمة الطيبة. So the Prophet ﷺ, even talking about this specific issue, he said, don't be worried that sicknesses are going to spread everywhere and get everybody sick. And don't believe in bad omens. I love and I am impressed and moved by positive optimism. And they asked him, what is positive optimism? He said, it's to say nice, good things and to bring a positive approach to whatever situation you're dealing with. So as a result of that, I'm here to tell you that good things are going to come to all of us, that we are all going to be blessed. And there are many opportunities in front of us right now to grow and to be blessed better than when we were not in isolation. So I hope that we will all take advantage of all of these things. One of the great scholars, Imam al-Mawardi, he said that optimism, it strengthens one's resolve. It moves you to work hard towards your goals. It helps us on the path to success. So Imam al-Mawardi, he's obviously, one of the great scholars of our history. He's talking about how optimism is not just some, random things that you say that, you just say nice things with no purpose. It's how you carry yourself when you say good things is the most important reality of all of us. So when we are going through this difficulty, the question is, are we working hard to make sure that our family does not get sick? So as we look towards Ramadan and the potential reality of Eid, we can't just go about ourselves, going to the store and going to places, having family members over and thinking, oh, well, we're all family, so this sickness is not going to come to us. No, what we've learned is that anyone who is not directly in your house, you don't know where they've been, what they've touched, what they've done. And so you should be careful. So the positive optimism here is I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to do what I know is right. And then I'll hope and believe that good things are going to happen, that none of us are going to get sick. And so the believer is responsible with their optimism. If you're talking about achieving a good grade, if you're talking about doing well at work with your job, then optimism is not good enough just by words or thoughts. You have to follow it up with action. And so that focus on that goal and that focus on that positive aim while you're working is what now this new movement that has become very common since this famous documentary called The Secret came out. It's called the law of attraction. And so what it is, it's the belief that when you focus on positive thoughts and positive, the end results of what you're trying to do will be good and you will achieve great things. That will attract positive experiences. So this is what they call the law of attraction. And the Prophet ﷺ in his life, as we'll see, very much was rooted in this understanding. And this is how Allah has guided him. So the foundation of optimism is rooted in knowing and having a good assumption of Allah Azza wa Jal. So if you know who God is and you understand his beautiful qualities and traits that he has described him with, and you are living a life that reflects genuine, sincere servitude to him, then you should follow as the famous Hadith al-Qudsi, where the Prophet ﷺ says that God has declared, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبْدِي بِي إِنْ ظَنَّ خَيْرًا فَلَهُ وَإِنْ ظَنَّ شَرًّا فَلَهُ. So he says that God has decreed to all of humanity that I am according to the assumption of my servant about me. If my servant assumes good about me, then I will be good for the servant. If my servant believes that I'm bad for them, or I will cause bad, or I'm looking to cause bad to them, then that will be the case that they are facing. And that's the kind of the point behind the verse, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. That it could be that you are disliking something and you feel like, oh, this thing doesn't fit what I want or what I had planned or what I had hoped. And then at the same time, that thing is very good for you. And so this is how we look at things as believers. As believers, our suspicion is good of Allah as long as we follow up with some lifestyle that supports such suspicion. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ told us about it. He said, Al-kayyisu man dana nafsahu wa amila lima ba'da al-maut. وَالْعَاجِزُ مَنْ أَتْبَعَ نَفْسَهُ هَوَاهَا وَتَمَنَّ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْأَمَانِ. That the spiritually intellectual person, the spiritually conscious and motivated person is one who takes account of themselves. That, what kind of knowledge do I have of faith? What kind of practice do I have of faith? How should I be living my life? What things should I be avoiding? And they are planning for death. So that's the spiritually intelligent person. Then he says the weak and the spiritually broke person, al-ajiz, the one who follows their desires and they are just hoping that Allah will forgive them and be merciful with them. So their idea is that, I just say, oh, inshallah, we'll go to heaven, and they don't really learn much about Islam or the Quran or the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. They're just kind of saying things in terms of their affiliation with Islam rather than their devotion and submission to God and His Prophet ﷺ that He sent in as the greatest example. So there's a beautiful narration in the tafsir where the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, that it teaches us to be careful in how we look at Allah and how we interact with Him no matter what our circumstances are. So the narration says that one day he prayed complaining of his long imprisonment, that he's been in jail for this long time. And so then God responded to him saying, Joseph, you imprisoned yourself when you made your prayer, رَبِّ السِّجْنِ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا يَدْعُونَ إِلَيْهِ. That you are, when these women enticed you to a sinful act, you said, oh my Lord, prison is more beloved to me than doing the sin these women are calling me to. So then Allah said, if you would have just prayed, oh my Lord, being saved from this situation is more beloved to me than doing what these ladies are calling me to, then I would have just saved you from the situation. So he prayed according to what was being suggested, that if you don't do this, we're going to put you in jail. So he prayed according to the power and control and the outcome that these ladies were promising. And that's what happened to him, right? So this is an attitude, a mentality that we have. So the Prophet ﷺ definitely was against pessimism and this negative attitude that many of us succumb to in life when things aren't happening according to our plan, or when, a lot of people, they say, well, I know I've learned enough, so they've seen people doing bad things or they've experienced bad situations. So then they're like, well, I expect that's what's going to happen. And that's just not the example of the Prophet ﷺ. It's not Islamic understanding of things. We're always hoping that we will do the best and that we will, get out of situations with his support and with his help. And so it's actually narrated that after the Battle of Uhud, the next time the Muslims were being sieged in Ahzab. And so then someone said something nice when they were all being besieged in Medina. And he said something good about how Allah is with them. And then the Prophet ﷺ called out to that man and he said, Ya hada, hey, you, أخذنا فألك من فيك. that we have now all been blessed with a positive outlook as a result of your beautiful statement, right? And that's how people build each other up. People say, oh, we're never going to be able to do this. Oh, we can't do, oh, this is the situation. We can never achieve, and this will never happen. And then, people all get negative and they don't achieve anything. But when we say, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, we can do this, this is possible, there's nothing to stop us, Allah is with us, and so forth, then we're in great shape. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, La tayra wa khayruha al-fa'l, that don't believe in bad omens. Don't look at things like, oh, this is what's bad's going to happen. The best of all thoughts and words is optimism, the Prophet ﷺ said. And in one narration, he said, Ahabbul fa'l al-fa'l al-salih. The best of optimism is the reasonable, well thought out, hardly worked towards realistic, fa'l. So it's not negating anything I've been saying, but what he's saying is that you plan and you work hard and you do your best, and now you have done the right optimism. So the Prophet ﷺ, he was a very positive person, even though his whole prophethood was faced with all kinds of abuse and humiliation and people following him and trying to create problems for him. But the Prophet ﷺ, he created this positive vibe and atmosphere, and everybody was drawn to that. It brings happiness and lifts the hearts no matter what you're going through. So even now, there's this whole branch of psychology or actual neurology. They're calling it psychosomatic or psychophysiology, which means that, your spirits and your attitude and there's basically stress is a vibe that you have where you're concerned about bad things happening. And so there's this chemical or this hormone called cortisol in your brain, and it starts to spread throughout your body. And there's actually, lots of evidence that many people who had heart attacks, while they may not have had the best diet, it necessarily wasn't the diet. It was actually a large presence of cortisol going through them, that it causes problems in your rhythm and your heart. And when things get bad, then it makes it that much more possible for you to die. So there's actually, so they say the broken heart syndrome, And so if you have a good positive, there is lots of evidence that says that your immune system is enforced, your ability to heal. And so there's this documentary on Netflix called Heal. So it's a whole documentary rooted in this concept that how your positive spirits and how you believe about things, that they can all be well, and then you follow that up, obviously, with a good eating and healthy eating system and so forth. Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, he said that the difference between optimism and pessimism is rooted in this idea about your assumption of Allah. So if you hope that Allah will do good things, and you see that at any given time, you are generally surrounded with His mercy. Like pretty much every moment of every day, we are completely overloaded with countless favors and blessings that Allah has blessed us with in our lives. Our health, our sight, our knowledge, our abilities, our friends, our family, our faith, whatever it may be, we are constantly surrounded with good. And so to expect and hope for that to be the standard, and no matter if bad things happen, then to believe that there will be good to come out of it, and then there is light at the end of the tunnel. So Ibn Abbas is saying that's how we should all be. He said, whereas people who expect bad things to happen is they have a bad suspicion of Allah. So they're praying to Allah and they're doing their best as believers, and they're thinking everybody in every situation, they're looking for the bad in it. They're seeing the negative in it. They're expecting the negative to come out of it. And that's just not the attitude of a believer. So if we look throughout history, we see all great leaders, all success stories started with and were constantly reinforced by optimism. You see, so in terms of, for example, in the Prophet's life, obviously, the Prophet ﷺ, whenever there was the Battle of Ahzab, one time, they're all surrounded in the Battle of Ahzab himself, and he had heard from this other guy, as we mentioned earlier. So he says, "Inni la'arju an atufa bil bayt al-atiq wa akhidh al-miftah." So now here's the situation. the Muslims are all, completely under siege in Medina. And there's 10,000 soldiers of, polytheists and Jews who have basically, completely shown treachery to the treaty the Prophet had given them in living there as, cohabitants in Medina. And now the Prophet ﷺ is praying, I hope and I am praying to see the day that I will go to the Kaaba and I will make tawaf around the Kaaba, and then I will take the key of the Kaaba, meaning I will be the authority figure of Mecca. Looking in these circumstances, it seemed pretty almost ridiculous. But he believes that he was sent for a mission, and for sure, God would not let their Qibla to remain on polytheism. It's a natural assumption based upon the truth of the faith that he is the final messenger communicating this message to mankind of. And so then, sure enough, about 4 years later, the Prophet ﷺ, he made his tawaf around the Kaaba, and he took the key and he, basically removed all of the idols and so forth from it. So that's the Prophet ﷺ. When we look at history, when George Washington and all of them were talking about, the revolution, the Revolutionary War against the British, it seemed crazy and ridiculous. And most people were like, no, that is not going to happen. This is the British Empire, the great empire, and this is the kingdom, and we are all just servants. And so they fought and they won. Abraham Lincoln was saying, we're going to eradicate the slavery and we're going to bring everybody back together. And it kept going on and on and on. And they were going to do that. And, the Steve Jobs, he would bring them ideas about what he's going to do with this and the ideas of technology that have not been worked out mathematically in the tech, but he sees it and he believes it and he's working towards it and he's putting all the right people together to make sure that these things happen. And here we all are, using things that Steve Jobs dreamt up and was very positive about achieving. And he got fired. He was told, you're crazy. I mean, this is what happens. Many people throughout history, felt this drive and this positive approach to achieve things. Prophet ﷺ was, waking up every day. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. Prophet ﷺ, he sought refuge in Allah from this anxiety and this sadness. وَمِنَ الْعَجْزِ وَالْكَسْلِ, and from this weakness and laziness. I can't do it. I'm not able. It's just too hard. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was on the hijrah, he's there with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And so, of course, the ayah comes down, but, he told him, مَا رَأْيُكَ بِاثْنَيْنِ اللَّهُ ثَالِثُهُمَا. What do you think about two people who Allah is the third among them? لا تحزن إن الله معنا. Don't worry, even though they're right here and they have said 100 camels dead or alive, we are going to get through this thing. Allah is with us. He believed that. So on the battle of Hudaybiyah, not the battle, when they went through this siege in Hudaybiyah, when they were on their way to the Umrah, and they, had been stuck for a day or two, and then the Quraysh sent their main negotiator, Suhail ibn Amr. And so Suhail means the small, easy thing, right? So then the Prophet ﷺ, he went there and he saw that they sent Suhail, which Suhail is no good of a guy. Suhail is a terrible guy. And he says and does many greatly blasphemous and disrespectful things in this negotiation. But still, even through that, the Prophet ﷺ, before he even got to the negotiation, he said, لَقَدْ جَاءَ Suhail. Suhail is coming. سَهَّلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا. May Allah make our situation easy. So he took his name, Suhail, and he made that this is a good thing. And there's about more than one hadith on this subject, that when there is a good village or place or person with a good meaning and a good name around it, the Prophet ﷺ would build upon that, this optimistic attitude. So this is how the Prophet ﷺ was. So I think just to conclude, how do we really reach this, positive drive and this optimistic approach? And first and foremost is to know who exactly God is, how he has described himself. Read the Quran. When he concludes the ayah, وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ وَهُوَ الرَّحِيمُ الْغَفُورُ وهو whatever it may be, Aliyul Azim, whatever it may be. Think about how all of that relates to who he is and how these prophets and how these circumstances are coming in the Quran. And you know how he is, and you know who he is, and you know what he has told you about himself and who he is to you. He is your Rabb. What does that mean? Right? If you understand that he's the nurturing, nourishing, caregiving force of your whole existence from the moment you existed and before then until the moment that you die, then you know that's why we keep praying Rabbana. There's many ways we could have prayed about it. That's why we're using that phrase. Don't let that phrase to become some superficial thing. Ya Rabb, we just say it like Ya Rabb without thinking who exactly is a Rabb. So first and foremost, know him. And then you can trust in him. As the great leaders of history did, as the great stories of the companions and so forth. Then we have to know ourselves. We have to know our shortcomings and our weaknesses and work on them and look to fix them and be conscious of them. We have to know the things we need to improve upon, how we can grow and get better. We have to know that the shaitan is there, that Satan is an enemy to us. He is trying to make our whole entire experience permanently negative. And the only way we can really tie all those together is that we live a life planning to die. Say for example, I got COVID-19. I have to be happy with my situation in that I am living a pious, righteous life to the best of my ability, praying and seeking the knowledge and applying it to the best of my ability. Maybe this is the time that I get to go back to him and I'm relieved of the struggles and the difficulties of this world. That is the attitude of the pious. That is the attitude of the believer. Everything is positive. As the Prophet ﷺ said, عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ إِنَّ أَمْرَهُ كُلَّهُ خَيْرٌ. How great is the affair of the true believer. His or her affair is good no matter what it is. إِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاء صَبَرَ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. If some bad things or some seemingly harmful or negative things happen, that person is perseverant and patient, realizing this isn't my home. I'm not from here. I'm not looking for Jannah on this earth. I'm on my way to heaven. So if this is the end of me, great. If not, it's removing my sins on my way to heaven. This is what we know. وَإِذَا صَابَتْهُ سَرَّاء شَكَرَ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. And if the good things happen, that person is grateful and realizing all of the blessings and hoping for more blessings and praying. The Prophet ﷺ, when he used to eat, Allahumma barik lana fihi wa atamna khayran minhu. Oh Allah, bless this food and give us better food in the future. Right? Yeah, I know a lot of you have Allahumma barik lana fima razaqtana wa qina adhab an-nar. Actually, that's a weak hadith. It's fine if you want to use it, but it's not an authentic hadith. The other one I have just mentioned, Allahumma barik lana fihi wa atamna or abdilna khayran minhu. Both of those are authentic. This is that positive, optimistic. The other one, is bringing up saving us from the hellfire when we're trying to eat. For me, it sounds a little bit awkward. It's a weak hadith. Maybe he did say it. Maybe there's some wisdom. I don't know. But this positive approach is found in the authentic hadith, as what we find in everything in the Quran and the Sunnah about how we should live and when we're blessed with good, how we deal with it. May Allah bless us with good knowledge and understanding and wisdom that leads us to a proper positive approach in life. May Allah bless all of you, inshallah. Inshallah, soon we will see each other. We are working on a Ramadan plan, whether in or out of the mosque, and it should be rich and fulfilling. Next week we will start talking about that on the sermon that we'll give before Dhuhr next Friday, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah bless all of you. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay isolated, stay vigilant, be careful, and all of the good things are coming to us. All of the blessings are coming to us.